Greetings, my name is Jean-Michel. I'm a Vedic astrologer. Today I'm going to be talking to you about 3 essential principles when you're starting off with astrological therapy. By the time I'm finished with this video, you're going to see how all 3 of these principles interrelate and work synergistically with one another. And if you've done therapy in any kind of capacity prior to discovering astrology, you've had experience what we can call problem-centered therapy, which is able to diagnose the problem, but then there becomes an over-focus on analyzing the problem in and of itself. What astrology can do is take that further and focus in on solution-centered therapy. So not only are we diagnosing the problem, we can then work to fix it that is not dependent upon over-analyzing and obsessing about the problem in and of itself. So we're going to show how both of these are necessary in order to grow and improve our lives and improve our character qualities. So let's get into it. The first key principle is that planets are forces in our consciousness, and that planets are the drivers of what we call human nature. They all have a pure expression. And the more we learn about that pure expression of what that planet is and does in human life, the more we can grow to understand how that planet can be expressing itself optimally. The combinations of where the planets are in the sky when we're born, that combination creates our personality. So it's important to understand, first of all, is that planets are not just energetic force fields in the sky and in our energetic environment. The planets are within us. And that first moment that we're born, that natal chart that is created, that energetic pattern, that the first breath that we take, that gets imprinted into us, that energetic pattern, what we call the natal chart, that is the foundation for the eventual expression of our full personality. So that being said, let's go on to the second principle, is that you're not locked into your natal chart. It is not a deterministic chart that says you will be this for your whole life. Quite the contrary. And kind of a pet peeve of mine, and since I started studying astrology, I was always dissatisfied with pop astrology, you could say. I'm a Sagittarius, I'm a Cancer. What does that mean exactly? And what people do when they have very rudimentary understandings of astrology, they say, I am this. And what they mean is their sun sign. And when they're saying that I am this, what they often do is put themselves into a self-made box. And they're saying that people with the sun here, or even if they know a little bit more about astrology, I'm an ascendant in this, my moon is here. They put themselves into boxes. And what that does is that creates the behaviors that they're saying that they are, even if that's not even a big part of their personality. By putting yourself and talking yourself into a certain planetary position, you're really doing yourself a disservice. You are much greater than your simple human body, because astrology is just the energetic impression on our human existence. You are much more than a human. You are infinite consciousness. You are a divine soul. You're greater than the energetic imprint you're living in this life. So when people talk themselves into certain behaviors by saying, I'm a Gemini, etc., they can end up actually justifying bad behavior or justifying their mistakes. One of the most common is, I'm a Scorpio, therefore I'm vengeful. Well, the sign of Scorpio, depending on what planets are in there, when you look deeper into it, it can have that kind of secretive and at times vengeful quality. But when people say, I'm a Scorpio, my sun is in Scorpio, therefore I act like this, they end up doing harmful things to other people, and they say, well, that's just how I am. And that is justification for bad behavior, and you're only doing yourself a disservice by doing that. And so planets, it's also important to understand in this second principle that we're not locked into our natal chart, is that planets mature at different ages. And our full expression of our personality actually doesn't happen until we're around 48 years old. For example, Jupiter matures when we're 16. The sun matures when we're 21. The moon matures when we're 24. Venus when we're 25. Mars when we're 28. Mercury when we're 32. And Saturn when we're 36. Now, until those ages, those planets aren't fully expressing themselves. As you can see, most are in the 20s age range, and you can easily see that during that period of time, people are really coming into themselves when they're in their 20s. A lot of experimenting is going on, but by the time they leave their 20s, their personality is much more solidified, so to say, because the planets have come to their full maturity. And by the time you're 36, all of the 7 visible planets have matured. Rahu and Ketu, the north node and the south node, mature. Rahu at 42, Ketu at 48. So not until you're 48 years old is the full energetic imprint solidified in you. So you're always changing in your life. And people discover astrology after their full personality has come more to fruition, say between 30, 35, and then to about 40 years old, people start to see, okay, I've got this thing I want to work on in my life. And that's because the planets have fully come to express themselves. But again, you're not locked into what that planet is or what sign that planet is in. That being said, it's important as the planets mature, you identify things in your life that you need to work on. And that is what the problem-centered part of astrology is. Because we all have things in our life that we don't even think about that are working well. And we don't need to go to an astrologer and ask, I need help in this part of my life. It's just fluid and working. But when there's other parts in your life that are not working, you go to the astrologer or any other therapist and you say, I need help in this part of my life. It's up to the astrologer or therapist to identify and hone in on that area and diagnose what's going on. In astrology, we say you're having problems with these planets. And you don't even actually need to have a natal chart. You can just hear for keywords and you can start to identify this person's having a problem with the expression of their moon. They're not being validated. They're having a problem with their will force, their Mars, etc. and etc. So when we diagnose the problem, then that leads us now to the third principle, which is embody the exalted form of the planets. And so let's say that a person they've diagnosed that they've got a problem in their life. And let's say that problem is a problem that has to do with Mars. They have Mars and Cancer in their natal chart. Or they might not even have Mars and Cancer in their natal chart. But you can see that they're having a problem with their self-expression and their use of their willpower. Maybe they're way too passionate and way too fired up to do things that they're not meant to be doing. Or maybe they let people walk all over them and they're a pushover. And they're the kind of person that just lets things happen to them until one day they just explode because all of the pressure is built up because they have not stood their ground and asserted what they want for themselves. So they are having a problem with their Mars. How do we deal with that? Well, we embody the exalted form of Mars, the best placement and the healthiest form of Mars, which is Mars in Capricorn. Mars in Capricorn can see problems from very far away and is able to avoid those problems because they're able to strategize with cold logic, and as soon as they're able to identify that there's a potential problem, they solve it before it comes, and therefore when that potential problem comes, they really don't have to deal with it because they solved it way beforehand. Mars in Capricorn is very level-headed. They don't get fired up when it's unnecessary to get fired up. They assert what they need and what they want in their life, and they respect other people's willpower. They understand that practical solutions are going to lead to the greatest chance that you're going to survive in a world that is constantly sending us threats our way. So Mars is the planet that deals with threats and deals with conflict resolution. So when we're embodying the exalted form of Mars, we're able to then talk ourselves into and practice new habits according to that planetary expression, that part of human nature, the force of Mars in our consciousness. So when we learn more about what Mars in Capricorn is, the more we can then create new patterns of behavior in ourselves. So it's not just okay with diagnosing the problem, we have to know what is the solution to that problem. The solution to that is to know the planets and understand the planets, and then again embody that highest exalted form of that planet. So as a review, the first principle, the planets are the baseline of all of human expression. They're the generators of human nature. And the more we learn about the planets, the more we learn about human nature. The second principle, We're not locked into our natal chart. And when we see something difficult happening in our chart, we have to understand that we're not determined forever to be that thing until the day we die. We have free will, and the first step is identifying what's wrong in our life. But that problem can be fixed. And so it's an error to think that our natal chart, the moment we breathe our first breath, nothing changes about our planetary expression. That's incorrect. We're not locked in to our planets, and it does you no good to say, I am this, therefore this. No, we are much bigger than simply planets. Planets in the Vedic astrology they're called grahas, which mean things that seize or things that grasp. These planets are grasping at us and pulling us to do certain things. But when we master the planets, what we're doing is no longer allowing those planets to pull and grab us and take us in different places. We can submit and understand them and let our life unfold, but those planets are not controlling us, and we can master ourselves. The third principle, in order to heal these planets, we have to know what their exalted forms are. So identifying what planets could have a problem, and then identifying what's the best way that that planet could behave. And gradually over time we can improve our character, and by knowing more about the planets and then really working to embody the best form of that planet. So I hope this video was helpful for you to understand these very important principles to start off with when you're beginning with astrological therapy. Okay, thank you.